In today's video, I'm going to teach you how you can use a self-directed IRA to invest some of your locked up retirement account money to invest in things outside the stock market, such as real estate. Later, I'm going to cover some of the pros and cons that are involved if you choose this type of investment to invest with. Hi, I'm Dr. Jeff Anzalone, periodontist, founder of DebtFreeDR.com. And this YouTube channel is all about helping doctors and other high-income professionals grow passive income streams to reach financial independence with passive real estate investments. Now, recently I was having lunch with a friend, and he was interested in how I've actually been able to create thousands of dollars a month in passive income while not having to treat any more patients and not having to work any more hours. Now, the reason that he kind of knew about this is he had actually watched one of my previous videos about investing in something called an apartment syndication. And he wanted to know what the minimum amount of money was needed to get into one of these types of deals, which is a pretty common question that I get from people. And I told him typically the average amount that I've personally been in these deals ranges anywhere from $50,000 on the low end to $75,000 on the higher end. Some of them are actually $100,000 too, which actually for him wasn't that big of a deal, except for one thing. The majority of his money that he had was tied up in IRAs that were actually from a couple of previous employers and companies that he used to work for. Now, interestingly, that actual same week that I had lunch with him and spoke with him, I had lunch with someone else, and he also had some of the similar questions that my friend had, because he had read something in a blog with the same topic. Now, I went on to tell both of them that they may want to consider using some of their locked up retirement account money to invest in real estate, because both of these people, they had close to 100% of their investments tied up in the stock market. And I went on to tell them how up until probably about 7 or 8 years ago, I was in the exact same situation. Okay. Now, you see, once we became debt free years and years ago, my wife and I were super excited, as you can imagine. I mean, it was so nice, looking our bank account statements, literally every month, and seeing all that extra money that was left over that used to go towards paying off debt now was coming back to us, flowing right back into our pockets. Question: have you ever had this type of feeling before? If not, it's a great one to have. Now, as with most things in life, we became accustomed to this type of living. And it eventually got to the point that, the excitement wore off. So it wasn't exciting as it used to be. And that is when the boredom started to creep in. Now, don't get me wrong, I continue to invest in index funds within our practices 401k. And really up until about 6 or 7 years ago, roughly, I would say about 95% of our overall portfolio was in the stock market. Now, this new boredom actually pushed me to start becoming interested in other avenues of investing. And that's when I started searching for higher returns besides the average 7 to 8% that I was getting in the market. Now, during this search, I stumbled upon something called a self-directed IRA. And come to find out, it's actually starting to change how people are investing their money, especially without assets outside the stock market, such as one of my favorite ones, real estate. All right. So let's start off with answering the question, what is a self-directed IRA? Okay. A self-directed IRA is a type of individual retirement account, or IRA, in which you, the investor, you're the one that's in charge of making the investment decisions, which when you kind of think about it, it's your money. Shouldn't you be in charge of it? And the main difference between a self-directed IRA, a Roth IRA, or a traditional IRA is that in the self-directed one, it provides you with a greater opportunity to really diversify your assets outside the traditional stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. All right. So, for example, these are just a few of the things, not all of the things, but these are a few of the things that you can invest with. Like I said, my favorite being real estate, land, either developed land, raw land, whatever, different types of notes, promissory notes, tax lien certificates, precious metal, gold, silver, etc. Cryptocurrency, which is actually a real big one. Mineral rights, water rights, oil, gas, that sort of thing. And yes, you can even invest in things such as livestock. So the self-directed IRA, this isn't a plan that you manage completely on your own. So one thing that you'll have to realize when you get this set up is you're going to need a trustee or a custodian to help administer the account. This could be a bank or a specific company or other entity approved by the IRS, but it cannot be an individual. So this is very, very important. Now, this person, this trustee or this custodian, they're the ones that are responsible for all the record keeping that's required. And they're also responsible for reporting all the different requirements that the IRS is going to be recommending along the way. And once this new account is set up, it's actually given a new name and an account number. And once you identify and select, let's say you want to buy some real estate or invest in a syndication such as we do. So once you select this investment or this property that you want to purchase using your IRA money, then the purchase contract, the title, all of that, it's all in the name of whatever the name of the IRA is, not your personal name. Okay. Now, what I like to do, I like to move on and let's talk about some of the different pros and cons there are with using a self-directed IRA. Now, as with most things, there are advantages and disadvantages that you must be aware of. And before you jump right in, you want to make sure that you do your part to attain as much knowledge as you can to make an educated decision. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to alternate between a pro and a con. So the first pro would be a tax benefits. And one of the main reasons that investors use self-directed IRAs to begin with, let's say to purchase real estate, is due to the many tax benefits that you're going to obtain. So typically whenever real estate is purchased, the gains received are taxed. But if real estate is purchased using a self-directed IRA, many times the taxes are delayed and your contributions can actually grow tax deferred. Make sure that your accountant is very knowledgeable in this. If not, you want to make sure that you seek out one that has experience in real estate. All right. One other thing to note that Roth self-directed IRAs, the contributions can actually be withdrawn tax-free whenever you retire. All right, number two, you must perform your due diligence, which is a con. As we stated earlier, if you set up a self-directed IRA, you must have a custodian. And again, their role is that of a passive custodian. And this custodian will not perform or is not going to perform any due diligence on any transaction that you want to make. So it all boils down to you, which, it really should be in the first place because it's your money, right? So it's up to you to make sure that you do your own due diligence before you make any type of investment. Now, for me, my rule of thumb is if I don't understand it or if I can't explain it to somebody, I don't invest in it. Moving on to the third on the list, it's actually a pro, is you can invest in alternative investments. One of the first questions that people ask me when it comes to funding any type of real estate investment is, hey, Jeff, can I use money that's already in my an existing retirement account? Now, with traditional retirement accounts, you're limited to investing in things in the market like treasury, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, etc. But With a self-directed IRA, you have a much broader pool to choose from. And some of the options that we discussed already from our list over here, but for me and most of the people that come to my website, they're really focused on using it to purchase or invest in real estate. And some people feel that by having alternative assets, it gives them a more secure retirement account because it allows them to grow their funds in multiple different ways instead of just relying on the stock market. All right, number 4, some of the tax breaks that you may receive are lost, and this is a con. Now, when using a self-directed IRA for purchasing real estate, you can't claim any of the depreciation that you would get on the property that it's held within. Also, there may not be a way to take advantage of some of the operating losses as well. Again, you want to make sure that you check with your accountant whenever you're dealing with this. Number 5 is a pro. You can potentially have greater returns with investing with these types of accounts. So when compared to typical investments such as, again, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, real estate has the potential for much greater returns than just some of the investments in the market. And remember, a lot of these returns are tax advantages. And by using a self-directed IRA, you're able to take advantage of those that you couldn't in traditional retirement accounts. Number 6, it's something called a UBIT tax, or unrelated business income tax. And this is a con. And another thing that you should consider is income. Most people consider income that is produced from their individual retirement account as investment income. And occasionally the IRS may categorize it as business income instead. If it does do that, then that income can be subject to this tax, this UBIT tax. And it can actually be taxed as high, whatever tax rate you're in, the 39.6 or 40% tax bracket or whatever. So that is definitely could be considered a con. All right, moving right along to number 7. This can provide an extra layer of protection. It's a pro. So if you should ever, have the unfortunate circumstances of falling on financial hard times and put your whole finances in jeopardy, like maybe bankruptcy or something that's looming, something that may give you a peace of mind is that if you have a real estate investment within a self-directed IRA, it'll actually be safe. Well, you're probably thinking, well, why is that? It's because funds that are in a self-directed IRA are protected from creditors. All right, number 8, lack of liquidity, which is a con. And as previously stated, the IRS requires the involvement of a certified IRA custodian to hold the account. Now, not only do these custodians have to approve the investments, but they also must approve the releasing of the funds to go into these investments as well. Now, due to the amount of paperwork involved with tracking account transactions, etc., which these are the things that are reported to the IRS, this could potentially put a screeching halt to the turnaround time when you may need cash readily available. Now, whether you invest in real estate, such as syndications in a self-directed IRA or not, you must know that you should go into this investment already knowing that, hey, whatever the whole period is, whether it's 4 years or 5 years or 7 years or whatever, that you need to go into the mindset of this amount of money, I do not need access to it for that amount of time. If you are, then this isn't the investment for you. All right, number 9, opening an LLC actually gives you some control. It's a pro. Now, one of the ways to prevent the lack of liquidity is by opening a limited liability company, or LLC, with your self-directed IRA. By doing so, you're able to gain what is called checkbook control. For instance, if you need quick access to your funds, let's say a new deal comes up and you have to act on it quickly, then you can actually skip the middleman as the transactions aren't waiting on administrators. Now, while you still need to report to your custodian, you only have to pay the fees for one rather than needing several. Now, last but not least, and it's actually a con, there's a lot of regulation involved. So your self-directed IRA could potentially become disqualified as a retirement account and subject to taxes and penalties if you handle any of the affairs with it incorrectly. Any activity from buying, financing, managing, or selling property with this account, again, must be handled properly to avoid any tax pitfalls. Okay. So, the bottom line of all this, one of the top advantages of the self directed IRA is that it gives you a much larger range of investment options than the typical stocks, bonds, and mutual funds than you could get in your traditional IRA. But remember, the custodian or the trustee, they're the ones that you need to get involved in control and must abide by the IRS guidelines in relation to filling out all the paperwork and maintaining the records. I want to leave you with one question. Are you interested in using a self-directed IRA for your real estate? If so, I want you to go to debtfreedr.com/free guide, and you can read all about what it takes to get started with passive income. Also, I'm going to put a link below in this video for information where you can actually connect with the people that I personally work with to set these types of accounts up for you. I'm Dr. Jeff. Take care.